Hello and welcome to the Chapter 2 Season 4 Grand Finals of the Fortnite Champions Series. It's your boy Zeke, and joining us here on the analyst desk, we've got none other than Shy Wager and Reese. Guys, yesterday we had some incredible games, and today we are back for the exciting conclusion and will crown a brand new FNCS Trios champion. How are the hype levels, boys? I love asking this question because I love the memes it provides. Provide me with memes, please.
I'm waiting for the Reese clap back, but for me, it's absolute maximum for EU and NA East today, and all the other regions around the world that have already finished up. I'm so excited to watch even more grand finals.
I may not clap back, but I will say, this is me currently on cloud 9.
Right.
This is me. This is me over the moon.
Okay.
And obviously also, my hype levels are still off the charts right now.
Wow. I have to applaud you, sir. Thank you for providing the memes. That's what we live for. Also, big shout out to everyone in Party Royale. If you're tuning in here, watching us live, hello. Thank you so much for taking time to hang out with us. We hope you have an incredible time. Use your favorite emotes. Use the paint. Throw the tomatoes. All of the above. Just let's have an awesome time. We've got 7 games of EU ahead of us, and it's going to be an incredible time. Now, real quick, let's talk about the broadcast and what you guys can expect as viewers as we're watching throughout the show. We're here in Grand Finals. Now, what got us here? Well, we started things off with an open round qualifier. From there, the top 15 trios pushed on through to heats. There was a 2-day competition, 6 games apiece there, where the top 8 trios then moved on to Grand Finals. However, yesterday, there was a very special wildcard match where one trio, the Victory Royale of that single game, that trio joined the 32 trios already in grand finals, and we kicked off 5 matches yesterday. We are here for the next 7. Shio, at the end of this, there's going to be brand new FNCS champions.
And they'll have that axe of champions as well. It'll be EU, the region that we're watching first. That wildcard match team is performing so well today as well, but at the same time, day 1 was just its own separate thing. Now with day 2, the scores are combined, but there's brand new stories we'll get to watch happen at the end half of these grand finals.
That's right. Now you're probably asking yourself, well, Zeke, Shio, how are these guys earning points? What are they doing to move up and down the leaderboard? Hey, don't even worry. We got you covered. Take a look here. We've got the Victory Royale. It's worth 25 points. There's 33 trios competing, so if a trio can land in 17th or higher, they'll start to earn points for placement. And finally, every single elimination is a point. Now, Reese, we always kind of go back and forth. Where on the spectrum should they fall? You know, we've seen trios like Mongrel, Mitra, and Tayson. They've got that average placement of 3.6, which is basically placing 4th every game. And they've got an average elims of 8.4. So these guys are just far and away balancing this perfectly.
You know, average elims of 8.4 is already above what we see from most teams who win their region. It's usually around like that upper 5s to mid 6s range. So these guys are already slaying out way harder than the average people who are winning their region. They have better placement at an average of 3.6, and they have 2 Victory Royales out of 5 games. So they've won 2 games out of 5. These guys are just playing out of their mind. They're managing to balance eliminations with great placement, with also managing to pick up that Victory Royale, and that's why they're so far ahead in first.
The biggest question will be, can they continue that momentum, right? Can they keep this going across the next 7 games? But not only are they walking away champions, not only will they have a trophy that they can show literally anyone in their lobby, the world, they will also be walking away with a bunch of prize money coming in first place, but also just being able to make it this far, they'll walk away with something. It is going to be an absolutely incredible day for Fortnite. We're going to watch some of the very tippy-top performing trios, some of the craziest action. We're talking some of the craziest play. I'm hoping for some big wow factors, just like, hey, I'm just going to go find an RPG. I'm going to go loot a shark. That's what I want, Shai.
I mean, absolutely. It's Europe, right? So we'll have to have that every single time, and it's always in a new way. No one can really predict, not even Reese, I'm going to say that, when it's in-game stuff that's going down. So I'm excited to see what happens today. It's going to be an absolute blast.
I think I'll predict it. Come on.
Okay.
I think, you know what? Maybe we'll have an RPG rocket launcher elimination thrown in there, something in the mix that'll kind of throw things up. I do expect it. You know what? There is always stuff that comes out of the blue that's always hilarious to watch, be it, vehicles picking up eliminations or anything like that. I hope we do see something good like that today, though.
Bro, you know I'm right there with you. Now, of course, we do have other regions. 7 total regions are participating, and some of these regions have already concluded their games. And we actually already have some FNCS champions. Let's kick things off over in OCE. Congratulations to Jinx, Alec, and Worthy. 244 total points, a victory royale, and 71 eliminations. They will claim the Axe of Champions.
Incredible performance by these 3 guys, and if anyone knows the OCE region, they should not be surprised. Jinx, Alec, and Worthy have qualified for every single FNCS that we've had so far, the grand finals of it. 6 out of 6. And Jinx has won 3 of those now, making him now a 3 times FNCS champion. Dude. And, these guys, again, were balancing that average eliminations replacement. I'd already said earlier that, those average eliminations for the winner was around the high 5s, and these guys had 5.92 average eliminations. So, again, very, very, very close to kind of what we were seeing and why that's giving us a good indication of Metro's team today on EU performing very, very well.
Yeah, and over there in second, Reapballs, Forbes, and Sinky Fishy, I believe they won their last game to get all the way to 207 points. So that is amazing for the second place finishers. So many top teams here as well on this page. Carry On, Eshes, and Sorif. These guys coming together in week number 2 as a brand new trio, and after that just performing so well. Even some high profile trios like the X2 twins paired with Volks getting 8th place overall, having a phenomenal day 1 and just being consistent on day 2 to lock in a top 10.
Team that was phenomenal on day 1 is our 7th place team. The user name there is actually Gubos, Tyrax, and Link. These guys had 115 points on the first day, and they were first by quite a large margin, but unfortunately did not perform that well on the second day and kind of pulled all the way down to 7th. So that's what we're talking about. We need to have some of these consistent teams that are performing on day 1 on the regions we're going to watch need to do the exact same thing here today as well.
That's just OCE's story for the top 10. So many teams played overall entirely across the world. There were more FNCSs playing out in Asia as well. Their FNCS ended, and we have a winner, Reese.
Yeah, we've got Ruri, Bob, and Moffin. The names may confuse you a little bit just because they're kind of a little bit off from their actual, but Drasna is Ruri, Mogrel is Moffin, and Bob, well, Bob's Bob. And these guys performed very, very well, and there's a little bit of a story behind their previous FNCS because, Bob and Moffin have been playing together for a long, long time, and Ruri and Moffin actually won the Season X FNCS trios, so they've already been a champion in trios all the way back in Chapter 1 of Season X. So the first FNCS we ever had, these guys already won it. Coming into their next FNCS, which was Squads, these guys ended up placing 2nd. So they nearly got 2 in a row. They nearly managed to get those 2 championships. And then ever since then, in the duos, the Invitational, and in the solo FNCS, they didn't manage to clutch it up. Now they've come back full circle into trios again and managed to pick up that 2-time FNCS championship.
Yeah, it still was absolute improvement for everyone else on that first page as well. A lot of trios who were starting off the very first portion of the FNCS at maybe 20th and 19th, hitting top 5, like Seek, Peter Pan, and Faxfox. These guys not even playing in the same trio in week number 1, getting 8th place overall once again on Asia. It's just absolutely amazing. These guys are going to be walking away with so much prize money, split obviously amongst those 3 individuals playing overall, but that was Asia in total. There are more trios all across the world who are also fighting out in FNCSs that are only really halfway through.
That's right, and EU is one of those regions. So what we need to do is kind of take a step back, revisit EU standings, and kind of see and paint that picture as what happened yesterday, right? We got to reset this stage because Mongrel, Metro, and Tayson, they just pulled so far out ahead of everyone else. However, there's still a trio right behind them, and that is a previous FNCS champion, Andalex, your previous FNCS Invitational champion, Janice, paired up with X-Squeeze. They're just neck and neck. But guys, I think the biggest, scariest thing is what Reese mentioned earlier, and that is teams that perform on day 1 sometimes can't do the same thing on day 2. So we may see this top 5 be completely different by the end of the day.
And you led into exactly what I wanted to talk about. The fact that these teams up at the top here are going to need to perform the same today. You know, Mongrel, Metro, and Tayson's team performed extremely well. We've kind of already covered how well that they have played in day one. It's been phenomenal to watch their dominance, but they need to continue that into today, 7 games, and really ensure that they stay at that top 1 spot. And Andalex, Janus, and X-Squeeze, although they're 30 points behind, these guys have the capabilities to catch up, no doubt. One bad game from their first place team will make them just catch up so fast, and then there's 6 more games left that they can easily overtake. You know, it's all about consistency across both days.
And Zeke was talking about the competition in Europe being neck and neck. Just look at all the necks on this page, I guess then, right? Like, the competition is so much closer, 63 points to 61 between Kinzel, who started the game in the day off so well with a win, and Flois, Andretta, and Louis. Over there, though, 53 points tied for 8th and 9th place. Our wildcard team in 10th with Nate, Smash Dave, who's Rojo, and Bobo at 51. Any of these guys having a good day can absolutely push forward and get towards that top 5, maybe even contest Metro, Mongrel, and Tayson themselves.
Do you think that's going to happen? Because you know what? I hope that it does. I hope that we have a team that's currently from 5th all the way down to 15th, maybe even lower, that has this big pop-off day today. And looking at this leaderboard now from 11th to 15th, there are plenty of names here who stick out of teams that can. Actually, you know what? Any one of these teams can. I think the 2 that are probably favorites would be Vel, iDrop, and Stursix, who's currently in 11th, and then in 15th with Flick, Thomas, HD, and Anas. These guys have been popping off all the way through the qualifiers, all the way through the heats, and it's kind of a bit interesting to see them in that 11th to 15th place slot. So today, hopefully they're going to figure out what kind of went wrong yesterday, bring it back, and start climbing up the leaderboards.
Oh, they've reviewed, they've warmed up, and now they're hungry to have an amazing day of 7 games. We'll see how it works. It'll be a long one, but I feel like it might be the best Fortnite we've watched so far.
Oh yeah, man, 100%. You know all these trios are looking to bring it. Now don't forget, yesterday, because we have 7 today, we had a matchmaking issue with one of our games, so we pulled out 1 game over to today, which leads us to looking at 7 games total. This is that added game I feel like is going to make a pretty big dynamic change to what we see the final standings look like. Now, we did have some BRs, 5 total yesterday, so we should probably reset those up, right? What happened?
Let's talk about day number 1 in EU. It was Wolfies, CRR, and Kinzel in game number 1 that made it close and personal all the way to the very end, getting all the way to low ground, getting a win, and really showing everyone how much they've improved as teammates and as Fortnite players in this FNCS.
And they actually struggled through the qualifiers a little bit, kind of only starting to catch steam at the end and then really start to pick up. And you can see that steam carrying over into the grand finals with their current 6th place slot and picking up obviously the first victory royale of the day. And moving on to game 2 was Metro, Mongrel, and Tayson. Now these guys are not shy to eliminations or a victory royale, and this is the first of their 2 victory royales for the day.
And speaking of 2 victory royales, we're just the number 2 in 2nd place. Andalex, Janus, and X-Squeeze, who is Duck on top, were the individuals to get the game 3 victory royale. They did it back to back. They did it all, basically securing the win alive, making sure everything was perfect, and wrapped it up in such seamless fashion.
And that win by Andalex, Janus, and X-Squeeze was actually 15 eliminations as well, which was the highest we saw out of day 1. So huge game coming out of them. But for game 4 was Blackie, Robabs, right in that end game. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday in our package, but this end game was focused all around pressure. Just these guys consistently pressure, and a beautiful shot onto Lechi just to finish things off there.
Yeah, Lechi got a little bit of an alley-oop all the way from Blackie at the end of that game. But you were talking about 2 wins. Here's Mongrel, Metro, and Tayson's 2nd one, and it felt like it got even easier for them as the day went on.
It did. You know, these guys popped off. They didn't get as many eliminations this time, picking up 9, which, you know, these guys are capable of big games. We saw them in the heats pick up a 19 elimination victory royale, so 9, a little bit less than, but given the consistency that they had throughout the day, a victory royale with 9 elims is still absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so that was kind of the first day for EU. A lot of action, some sprays, some team damage too. It was amazing, Zeke.
Bro, it really was. I'm telling you, I could not be more excited. I get to hang out with you guys to watch this. We get to hang out with our casters, everyone at Party Royale, everyone at home. It's going to be so much fun, and I can't wait to see the final results. Now, of course, speaking of those results, you guys actually made some predictions. Our casters and our analysts decided which teams they thought would walk away the FNCS champions. Sundown kicked us off. Floki, Clement, and Nikos. Now, right now, these guys are in 5th place, But again, we've got another 7 games on deck. They can turn this around.
Yeah, they can turn this around, and Clement is known to, because he's the only player on EU who has actually managed to qualify for every single FNCS. So the only one out of the entire region. So this team has the potential to do extremely well. We know they're consistent. And obviously Floki and Nakos also both very, very consistent players themselves. Moving on to my pick, though. Andlex, Janus, and X-Squeeze. Now, I've predicted these guys a victory in Qualifier 3, and I think they're coming back for the 2-time. They're second right now, and they are performing very, very well so far. So 7 games left. I believe in my boys.
Okay, I'm going to drop some fun facts about every prediction. Once again, you mentioned Clement. I was going to say maybe change the name to Cement, or Cement in general, because this guy just sticks in every FNCS no matter what. He is so rock solid when it comes to just being able to play these games all the way out towards the end. Reese, you're also one of the best predictors overall in the FNCS, is always picking first place teams. So I feel like you have the strongest pick here. Sancho, Mongrel, Micho, Tayson has the most strength right now in first place overall. So this man and this trio are looking so powerful after day number 1. I picked Flick, Anas, and Thomas HD. These guys are having a little bit rough times in day number 1, but Anas is clutching about 43% of these guys' points throughout all the games. He's looking really good when he's playing. Maybe in day number 2, these guys learn up and then push forward, have a glorious day like we were talking about before, and end up in that top 5.
Many of these trios have the possibility, the capability of turning everything around, right? Like, we've seen Thomas clutch single by himself versus other entire trio games, right, in open rounds and heats. Any of these teams can literally take these leaderboards and put them on their head. That's why they're here. They're the top 1%. They've made it to grand finals, and now it's about which team will take advantage of the day, which team will make that stamp and look to walk away the FNCS champions. Now, Fortnite fam, we're not the only ones that are here. We've got our casters that we'd like to introduce you to. So, Sundown, Sancho West, say hello to everyone at home.
Thank you so much, Zeke, Shio, and Reese, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Jonesies, Bonesies, he's, she's, theys, thems, and everyone in between. My name's Sundown.
And I am Sancho West, and boy, oh boy, we are going to have some awesome action. And hello, Party Royale Island. It is so hyped to be in-game, and Sundown, I am so excited to get into it. Here we go. It is Fortnite time. Grand Finals Day 2, Game 6. Let's see how it all unfolds, and the action will only get more crazier as we get to the final Game 12.
And here we go again. Don't forget, we'll have 7 matches today, and for those of you who are just tuning in, whether it's your first time, we'll be explaining a bunch of things, but what you need to know right now, that number 1 spot, they talked about it at the top of show, the best of the best, arguably one of the strongest and most talented trios in the entire world, and they've shown it so far through the first 5 games in Europe, is coming out of Stark Industries. It's E11 Tayson, FaZe Mongrel, and Liquid Mitro, and they have had this place wire to wire the entire time. Anybody who has come here basically gets forced in having to 50-50 one of those henchman chests. Otherwise, they just force you out, and they're doing it again.
The only person that's literally contesting, and he has to, is Iron Man. And Iron Man is getting destroyed by the Thanos of the Fortnite world, and that is the Big Grawl and Mongrel. And what's the most interesting thing is when I tuned into Mongrel's Twitch stream after this incredible day 1, he wasn't creative. Free building to stay sharp. That's the champion's mentality. There's no celebrating. They still know they have a job to do. Mission is not complete. And what was a really sweet moment, so to speak, and I know that may be a strange thing to say when you mention Mongrel, but a really sweet moment was that he was asking for a prayer from his community. He said, look, I'm performing at my best. My mates are performing at their best. I 100% believe that he will be the Fortnite champion at the end of the day and that he will come out on top. That was a very touching moment to tune in to Mongrel stream. So this trio right here, everybody has their eyes on. Everybody in the Twitterverse, the Fortnite fam, was wondering how they would perform. And so far, Sundown, nobody's contesting them. So nobody's going to step up to the challenge to slow down this train.
And largely we've seen this is kind of beneficial to them. Again, we've talked about the stats over and over again, how this team is almost reliant on Mongrel staying up on his feet. He is the one who makes the plays. He accounts for so many, not only of their eliminations, but also just his number of them. He outweighs so many other trios. I think he out-eliminated 85% of the other trios, or I think 82 going on there.
An insane
but
amount.
If he goes down early, it's so incredibly difficult for them. Tayson and Mitro being strong players in their own right, but aren't necessarily able to convert when he ends up missing. And one thing we talk about, just how good Mongo and Mitro are, but if you go back and actually look at their tournament results, outside of Cash Cups, their last quote-unquote signature wins, Mongo shared the love, March 2019. Mitro, baby, we're going all the way back to the fall of 2018. Week 3 fall skirmish, to that shockwave play that shocked the entire world when he threw it on the ceiling, sent himself downwards. Kind of the first time we've seen kind of one of those aggressive shockwaves through the builds. But other than that, Tayson is the one who's had kind of the more recent major tournament victory royale experience, and Mongrel and Mitro are kind of missing that trophy on the shelf. And today, will it be their day?
It can be, or can a new trio on the scene, Wolfies, Kinzel, CRR, who were able to get a victory royale on day 1, and in the opening frame, game 1, they had a strong performance. It was a very chaotic ending in Retail Row. You saw them box fight their way through at the very end, fighting on the low ground, being so aggressive, and they were able to take away that first opening victory royale. But we did see in game 2, they were driving around here on top of the Hydro Dam. One sniper shot their way, kind of sent them going down a very downward spiral. Inconsistency so far for the day 1. Let's see if they learned their lessons going into game 2. But here we are. There's still a lot of top talent here competing. There's still a lot of money up for grabs here. So even though we're going to keep an eye on course on the top of the board, we're always going to see the other big names in the region trying to compete and kind of accrue literally every elim, every placement point. We're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars on the line.
And again, too, you can see right now we've yet to have a trio drop only one player. You can see that in the top left corner of your screen. 98 out of the 99 available players still on their feet. 33 trios remaining, so probably going to get a little bit of aggression here on the north side of upstate New York. Saw plenty of this yesterday, but right now, Chapek, Queasy, and Milan, aka EP Electa, you can see right away Shockwave coming out, and Pablo Wingu trying to create a little bit of space here, but they're not going to give him even a moment to breathe. Second Shockwave being used from the Enterprise Gaming player, and he's going to find Pablo there. Shakedown as well to try and identify where the other two teammates are, make sure they get the max damage coming through to indicate the Storm Surge, and a good pickup there.
That's not the first time that Pablo tried to kind of poke the bear there in a very strong trio. He did that as well in day 1 with Mongo's trio, and they paid the price. So it's so interesting as well to keep you up to date in the feed. Mr. Savage's trio is getting a knock against that dual media trio as well. So that fight, that engagement, that in Doom's Domain is still popping off here. So we've been seeing, though, in different regions, Sundown, is that sometimes this Craigie Cliffs trio, as you see in Milan's trio, sometimes could push that fight and be wondering. I think what we're seeing here is this Milan trio is picking on the scavenger routes versus going against a power POI like Doom's Domain, like the NA East Zexros of the world.
Which I think is the right decision, and we talk about these scavenger routes. That's when you're not landing at one of the named places on the map, and you're just trying to get an aggregate number of chests and whatever loot. Generally, you're also utilizing the fishing pools because there is a solid amount of weaponry that you can pull from there. We've seen the clips of people pulling those epic and legendary pump shotguns, as well as just key fish at the right moments. But being able to pick up 3 points there, each elimination being worth 1, and that will be our first trio going down on the day here in match number 6.
Milan's trio was coming into 24th place, so on the bottom half of the board, they had about 23 points, got about 10 elims. Their average placement, though, is about 18 plus, so they're looking to turn that around. And this is the only trio that right now, at the moment, is in striking distance. It is Anilix, Giannis, and X-Wheeze. This is also a very decorated trio. Zeke kind of mentioned it at the top of the show. Duos champion, a solo champion in Giannis as well. Anilix is that duos champion. X-Wheeze is the only one looking for that trophy to add to the mantle. And already, and X-Wheeze to kind of bridge that gap. because all Mongrel, Mitro has to do, and Tayson, is just keep the pace. Get to in-game. You know, don't kind of take any aggressive fights. Make sure they're standing on their feet to accrue those placement points. And that is why that lead difference can be very difficult. I know we've been talking about it, Sundown, is that, you know, they've been inconsistent and they take some crazy fights. But I think they learned their lesson. And that's, you know, I believe that Tayson is, like, finally, they're believing in what Tayson's leadership is. And Tayson's being a very, like, super gorilla glue there and holding that trio together.
Well, and it feels like all Mongrel really needs to do is to be able to just rein himself in a little bit. You can tell when he gets that red in his eyes, wants to go forward just like the charging bull that he is. But right now, CRR finding a huge headshot there with the Stark Industry rifle. We talked about the first shot accuracy reset on that being very, very, very quick, and they're going to be able to get a little piece of kind of this third-party action. We saw Stir6 get taken down early, and they're using the palm blast there from the Sentinels to be able to send them forward. You get a nice little redeploy going off, and you can roughly control the direction. This is based off of where the hand is facing. The gap here. However, the revive is coming through, and it doesn't look like they're able to identify where Smudge is right away.
Wolfie's trio and Co, they came right now into this match at 6th place. So they're coming in within that striking distance. They just got to string together a couple of strong games. And you're seeing here their box fighting skills as they pick up a knock on Smudge, who did get a knock on Stir6 here. So Stir6 trio is around this area, and there's all the way up. So it's going to be interesting to see what Kenzo Wolfies did. They could get a strong start. They had a good start in day one, getting that victory royale. Nice. Wolfies with the confirmation right there with 2 elims, looking really, really solid. I'm expecting this trio to start picking up elims, considering that is what they do best. Their average placements is about 12th place. The average elims is sitting at 3. No doubt this trio could do a lot more work, but it was that game 2 goose egg that really did hurt their stride. And we have to avoid those goose eggs going forward. So if you're on top of the board, you don't want any zeros. You don't want to get knocked out before that 17th place threshold. You want to keep doing what you do. And that is what Benji and Savage, now they have to do. Now there's no Lechi. So that's going to be a duo moving on. So, it's going to be so much riding on the line for this to keep up the pace that they're sitting in 3rd place at the moment.
Yeah, and they've had a tough time coming out of Dooms recently. We saw the dual media pressure come on to them. Lechi getting confirmed, but generally you've seen them be very good at prioritizing getting the reboot and then remaining 3 up. However, not quite able to get that over either, as they only got 2 eliminations. So seems like a little bit of a split fight out of Doom, but decent loadout right now on 100 Thieves. Mr. Savage there, you can see, also has the epic sniper rifle to help contribute kind of towards the picks. And so far today, we're seeing a little bit of a slower match. We're going to have 21 players threatened by Storm Surge. You can see the damage threshold warning there on the right-hand side. Luckily, these guys off of the contest are 890 above. Now, if you are new to competitive Fortnite, Storm Surge is actually active in every single game, even the regular squads and solo lobbies, but it only triggers when you have a certain density of players. The current threshold when the second zone closes and we go to zone number 3, the number we're looking for is 70. So the 21 players who have done the least amount of damage to their opponents will be put under that Storm Surge pressure. It does 25 damage every 10 seconds. So while you can use utility to out-heal it, generally it makes you go aggressive.
And there you see the dual media trio in the background there. But just to give you an idea how important Lechi has been in these grad finals, he is currently leading the way if elims. So now they're missing that. They are kind of spreading that workload almost evenly, 7, 8 respectively for Benji's and Savage. But they have been the only trio that's been fully all the way up. Like, they spend the most time as a trio. So this is going to be one of the rare times in these grand finals that Benji and Savage got to go as a duo. So they're truly putting in that team effort, and the results are speaking for themselves considering that they're in 3rd place. But you can see that the injury that's been caused by that dual Mia trio out in that distance here, they're basically 2v2. You're just seeing that, a contested Doom's domain could just leave you, yes, you get that opportunity to get that power weapons, opportunity to get those loots, but at the end of the day, man, you're going into these dangerous zones injured.
And you can see X-Squeeze picking up eye drop there. He's going to get the confirmation there. Matzo's getting busy on top of these guys. As Savage actually eats a bunch of bullets in the back. I think that was either the dual media or one of the other teams who's kind of posted up on the side there. They're going to work along this bottom side tunnel here, but they need to be conscious of the fact that they don't have a ton of white heals outside of the chug splashes, and largely they want to save those for in-game scenarios or when both of them need them, if possible, because now it's just going to be effectively wasted as they're thrown against Benji there. And you can see Savage has a player at his back as well, hopped into the box, but they're not paying attention to what Benji is brilliantly done there to get the first conversion. That's largely going to be Storm Surge pressure, but above them, raining down shots on the eccentric ADN and the train hard duo Matzo and Amplify, but Benji going to be able to clean up one. Savage gets the other, and a nice pickup for them there. 4 points so far, but Savage, man, very little white HP.
And if Savage gets tagged here a bit, that's going to be the green light for any trio to kind of jump on down. And just looking at it right here, it's like once you kind of leave your main power POI, the question is, where are we going to find a replenishment? And considering right now there's literally zero or minimal opportunities to kind of farm up, you're going to have to get it from another trio. And when you're in shambles like Benji and Savage are, that's going to be so difficult. Yes, they get a little brief refresher. They find their little moment of oasis, but that could be soon a mirage going forward for the rest of the ride here in this opening game in day 2. This is the grand finals. This is the FNCS Trios. At the end of the day, we will crown an FNCS Trios champion, and that's going to be awesome. And they're going to collect $111,000, wield the Axe of Champions, and gain the ultimate respect of being a champion.
And are currently on board here. They were 5th coming into the day. Solari, Floki, and then Rams, Clement, and Nakos, the French trio, being absurdly consistent during their heats and having a good start to the day yesterday, but 2 really waffling games there. Games 3 and 4 made it tough and kind of allowed for the top of the leaderboard to separate themselves out a bit. Now, one thing about this trio in particular is they're a little bit more aggressive on average than any other trio in EU. They generally will pick up their first eliminations around 8.5 minutes in, which is more so than a lot of the other teams. So despite being uncontested, they're more than comfortable to go out and not only get tags, but look for confirmations. And one thing I want to note, we went from 91 players to 66 players in that nice little spurt there. So the Storm Surge driving plenty of action and plenty of points being doled out, but it's all in the form of those eliminations because the placement points won't come through until we have our top 17 trios.
It's the same thing that we saw in A East in their day 1. It was just a fantastic cast covered by Ozzy Antics and Monster D-Face. All those players in the NA East region were playing so tight to the chest. They were making sure that every build mattered and every peak mattered, every edit mattered, and we were seeing those crazy Storm Surge, or I remember like 5 minutes will pass and everybody will still be alive and up and running. As we've seen in the feed, Analyx gets a confirmation on Vettel, so Vettel, iDrop, and Stir6 are out. Benji is still cooking up right there, going against Carrot, a new star that kind of prop up on the scene in the FNCS Invitational as the coolest Carrot. But hey, I don't know how long you could be cool, man. It's time to heat up, man. I don't know what you got to do if you're the coolest Carrot, but now it's time to heat it up because right now the action is heated up as we can get a nice overview of Thomas HD and that trio who had a decent start. They pulled zone, and I really believe, and I'll get into it if we have an opportunity, I really believe that shifting that landing from Dirty Docks to Retail Rope is really affecting that Thomas HD trio.
Yeah, it makes it a little tough to be able to get out when you're used to a certain circumstance, but you can see utility being used as players will jockey position here on the 4th zone. And positioning in this zone is so important because the change for the next zone, the 5th zone, will then be our half in, half out. What that means is the new safe area will kind of cut around the outside, so players, rather than heading central like you want to for the first 3 zones, will now crowd around the outside for the hopes of pulling that half in, half out 5th zone, so then they'll get priority on the moving zones that happen afterwards. So zone 6 through 9 will completely leave the safe area for the new zone, and that causes everyone to be forced to rotate, and that's where high ground ends up being so important.
Here is our wild card trio who were able to get into with a very intense, super hype. All the metaphors in the world will not explain how intense that situation is. It is Rojo's trio, and they're doing really well here in the grand final stage, sitting at 10th place, and they pick up a big knock on Hen. And Hen, Puchik, and Deceptos were one of those trios that a lot of people were picking as a dark horse. So this is going to be a big impact elimination, not only for Dave just on the leaderboard, but for Rojo's trio for just to have that confidence of knowing that they can compete. And that just what's really wild here about that the 33rd team can still walk away with the grand championship at the end of the day. Deceptos, Patrick, and Hen. And we all know, just like Mongrel's importance to that trio, Hen is super important to Deceptos and Patrick. And Patrick goes down.
Punchuk goes down again. Smash Dave. Again, you talked about it. Rojo, the World Cup duos runner up there with Wolfies, now representing Smash Esports. You can see SB Nate and then Bobo of Exalti as well. They came up clutch in the final moments yesterday, but now putting good pressure. And we talked about it. Hey, what's the difference between the first and the 33rd team in the finals? Well, they all get to play all 12 games, and it's a fresh slate once you get there. So all that matters is you got invited to the dance, and right now these guys have been very much so capitalizing on the opportunities and finding some great rifle shots. The angles here from these guys almost completely covered, and notice how they have the metal full belt cones above them, cutting down the angle on anybody else who might be or might even thinking about throwing shots towards them. So good effort there to convert into 4 points.
It's all about the acute angles right there. Everything matters. Every moment matters. Every knock matters. Every confirmation and elim matters. This is what the intensity is of Fortnite competitive play, especially on the grand final stage. And some people will be able to step up to that pressure, and they're going to be able to play outside of their minds, and we're all going to get hyped and say, what are you doing? What did you eat for breakfast? How are you doing this? Or some of them are just going to be able to fold. But that doesn't matter. I mean, you made it this far. You have an opportunity to build off of this, to build that confidence. And that is what's so amazing about this, is that if you think about the EU region entirely, it's probably one of the most dense regions in the Fortnite competitive scene.
Oh, it's absolutely the most tense. The most players competing, especially at the highest level when you're going through the most tournament participation. And you've seen time and time again that some of the plays that come out of this region and the gun skill and the level of mechanics are utterly ridiculous at times. Might not have the most discipline, but what does discipline matter when you can beat the person who's across from you 9 times out of 10? And right now you can see Clement and Floki Nakos were able to pick up an elimination onto Vidil and Fastroki's trio, so going to be able to snake away a point there and also avoid Storm Surge for that 5th zone threshold. It is 50 players, so we're right at that line. We are also at the line where placement points are about to begin to be doled out. So once we get into the top 17, every single trio that falls will then be 1 more point. Then once you're into the top 3, there's an additional 11 points on the line. Third gets +2, second gets +4, and then the Victor Royale walks away with a big old +5 and whatever eliminations they can rack up at the end. And right now, we're seeing, again, good discipline here from the French trio, finding an angle, being able to put pressure. And they pulled priority on this zone here. You can see their bottom right-hand corner. They have the white line, and everyone else is going to have to pass them if they want to head to safety. And they're going to begin to try and head upwards a little bit. Nope, they open that up, and they say, never mind, somebody's directly above us. We're going to stay on this low ground.
And here we are going into full storm rotations now. 6, 7, 8 are going to be outside of the storm every time this trio gets into the safe zone. And then 9 is the ultimate closing zone. We'll go all the way down to the entire screen is filled purple. But Nakos gets a big knock on Yanis on the same layers there as they're going to make their full rotation. And that is the power of having priority. You could kind of look back and they get X-Squeeze as well. So they're going to trade out when Nakos is going to go down, pick up the quick heal. That's a great benefit as well, being on the front side of the storm. You have the time to res, and they're going to barely get that res off. And now we're going to take a look at the chaos. You're going to have the low ground form up, you're going to have the mid ground form up, and of course, who is at height is always the question that everybody wants to know, because they're going to have the power position here to walk away with the Victor Royale. Savage goes down, gets fully confirmed in the feed. All the names are going to start lighting up here for the moment here, Sundown.
Yeah, now we have our placement points beginning to get doled out, and they're going to come in very quickly. 2 already taking over as we're into our top 15, 35 players remaining, but a good execution there coming through from Nakos and Co to get back to a strong 3. Now they're going to about face and start spraying shots. Andalix will also get confirmed by Blackie, so that's our second place team being taken down. We talked about Rojo and Co, but they will be no mo there as he gets taken out. However, Mongro, Tayson, Mitro, if the number 1 team doesn't fall and gets high ground every game, this is going to be a race for second as they open up match number 6, just like they closed the rest of the day yesterday, controlling high ground and raining down the AR shots with nary a contestant in sight. So we're going to hop on board here with the French trio, who's continuing to work on the low ground. 4 eliminations so far. Nakos has the legendary pump as well as the bandage cannon, so good opportunity to potentially execute here in the late game and make some plays.
CRR stuff, Wolfies does get knocked, but it is an opportunity, though, for at least Clement, Floki, and Nakos to kind of close the gap as much as possible. Yes, already, metaphorically as well, on top of the leaderboard is Mongrel, and on height is this game, as Nakos does pick up an Elan right then and there. It's so important, though. We've been seeing the playstyle in the EU region to overcome height at a moment's notice. We've been seeing a lot of low-ground victory royales. The question is can Mongrels hold on? And Kenzo is actually going for height. It's Cammy. Two teams are competing from height, and it's going to be Tayson that's going to be left on alone. And you mentioned Mongrel going down. Mitro and Tayson are going to have to do it as Cammy and Raxo take control of height, as you're seeing on your bottom right. On the top right is going to be the low ground. And Clement, and man, look at them. They're getting so many elims right now. Already with 7 Sundown.
And there's plenty more on the board. They're also getting the placement points ticking over. Top 4 with 9 players remaining. But all of a sudden, Clement is all alone. He's going to turn around and pick up CRR. It's going to be a 1v3. He finds a second right away. That was Mitro for the full confirm. But he goes down in third. Raxo up on the high ground, running it out now. And the challenge comes up from Kinzo, and he gets swatted down. Raxo and Gamma Gaming Cammy will close that one out. 9 eliminations and 34 points from the Victory Royale. Match 6 closes out there.
In a blink of an eye, before you know it, a victory royale is accrued by Raxo and Co. We're going to need the breakdown from Zeke, Shayo, and Reese. What you got for us, fellas?
What we got, Sancho, is day 2, and we have even more day 2 teams. This is what we were talking about at the very beginning of this show. Cammy, Artur, I cannot believe they find themselves in the Victory Royale. Just for clarity, they came in and ended day 1 in 14th place. And now they're going to start day number 2 with the Victory Royale and eliminations. I mean, this is exactly what we've been talking about. I'm so surprised, and gentlemen, we're going to break down kind of what went down a little bit more in just a little bit. But remember, we've got the standings. We have these cumulative leaderboards. You've still got Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson. They're far and away, even after that game, I mean, 40 points ahead. I don't know how they're doing this.
It's like they didn't win that last game, but they did not lose it either. They got to survive all the way till the very end, and now they have an even bigger lead, Reese.
17-point match for them. Really, really nice. And like obviously, like we said, we need to keep this consistency up. They're already coming in strong on the first game of day 2, consistent as they were yesterday. We can see kind of Andalex not managed to get that many points, only 4, so they're still holding on to that second place spot, but you know, they really want to be trying to bridge that gap between first and second, and so far it's only gone a little bit further.
Yeah, so our top 3 also switched up with Benji going down to 5th, and then we see another trio, Kinzel, Wolfies, and CRR get 3rd overall. This is what Zeke was talking about, though. Raxo, Cammy, and Artur, a Victory Royale. 14th place all the way now to 6th with 76 points.
Wow, that's impressive. And you know, to answer a little bit of Sancho's question, how did they do it? They did it because they were popping off on low ground, being really, really consistent. They managed to keep that mobility for the end game, take height, and win the game that way. So really nice play from them, pushing them up from 14th all the way up to 6th.
Yeah, and all the way from 6th down to 15th. There's been a few switch-ups here and there. Nate, Rojo, and Bobo move all the way up to 11th from 15th from what we saw before. Cooler, Robabs, and Blackie are getting that Victory Royale, but are slightly teetering off now, dropping out of the top 10 place. And Page, we'll see if they can bring it all the way back. Vettel, iDrop, and Stair6 also a trio to look out for that plays very consistently. And Falconly, Yaxo, and Skype, I love actually seeing their names now. It looks so clean in 15th place. 47 points, not too far behind the competition, still very close for the top 15.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it when you can read the names, it's clear, and you can find the players. I'd love it. And all the teams that you're seeing here between 16th and 20, you know, most of these guys are really struggling with that early and mid game, in particular with Storm Surge. You know, these guys in this grand finals kind of lobbies, going for Storm Surge tags is extremely difficult, and your strategy really needs to be down. Queasy Milan Chapix in 19th, coming out of Craggy, is really struggling with that right now. So hopefully they can figure out their strategy, get their points, and keep moving.
I think we could chalk some of this up to just first game jitters, right? Like, we've watched the top 3, except Mongrel, Mitchell, and Tayson, kind of fall a little earlier on than expected. But again, we've got 7 total games. We've got 6 more. It's okay, just first game jitters. Let's just test the waters. Okay, game 2. It's time to bring it. Let's go ahead and talk about what kind of transpired in this last game, as well as walk back through the Victory Royale. There's a couple key things that happened there that if you blinked, you missed it.
Absolutely. Throughout the entire FNCS, we've been focusing on the top 8, the top 15. Now it's about the top 3, especially from day number 1 and how they looked. Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson landing over at Stark Industries, one of the best POIs, and they had a very good game in day number 2.
Some would say the best POI, but the second best POI, in my opinion, over at Doom's Domain. We're checking in with where's our third place team, which was Benji, Savage, and Lecce. They are contested similarly to the end few games of day 1 by the dual media trio, fighting off spawn every game now.
Yep, and Reese, this is your pick over at Sweaty Sands. They're looking pretty strong as well.
They're looking strong, and you know, the Twitter was going wild about Sweaty Sands last night. They were talking about it heavily because it is a fantastic drop spot, but unfortunately they didn't seem to manage to perform out of it that day.
Yeah, over here we'll tune in with Tayson, Mitro, and Mongrel. The reason they find themselves in this low ground chaos is because Cammy, Artur, and Raxo saved all their shockwaves, saved their actual crash pads, took height in the 8th zone. These guys only had enough mats to sustain, not retake height, and they ended up falling. Here's Lecce, Benji, and Savage continuing that fight with a dual media trio over at Doom's Domain. Lecce goes down. It's just Savage and Benji left in the end game.
Yeah, it's just Savage and Benji left. They did what they could, but that fight took them way too long. They ended up being in the zone with 2 other trios in the 2nd zone, still in Doom's Domain, made them rotate late, and that left them with horrible materials because they ended up getting focused in that endgame.
And we have Andalex, X-Squeeze, and Janice in the endgame as well. Also a little bit shambles. It looks like all these day 2 trios have improved. These day 1 type of top performers, the top 3, are looking to repeat things, but they will have to adapt to how these teams, such as Raxo, Artur, and Cammy, are closing out these games.
Yeah, and like I kind of alluded to earlier, these guys took height with those shockwave plays in that last moving zone, and because Mitro, Mongrel, and Tayson did not have enough materials to maintain the high ground, they could not take it back at that point. It was secured for Cammy, Raxo, and Artur. They just continually pressured down from there on, and that was the Victory Royale.
Man, I mean, again, first game jitters. We'll see. We got to see for the data from game number 2. The question is, though, is there going to be a new day 2 trio that will pop up like this one that we just watched, or will our first day trios show up? Well, let's find out as we jump back into game with our casters. Take it away.
So much, Zeke. I am Sancho West alongside Sundown, and it is a new day. Yes, it is. We are seeing some new trios who are trying to meet the performance of our day 1 trios. And hey, that number 2, sometimes a sequel, it can be better than the original. We all talk about movies here. Sundown, you've seen it before, and here's take a look at our game 2 of 7 here in the grand finals. And we're going to see a finish here up in the Northwest region, which is going to really favor that Doom's Domain and, more importantly, that Sweaty Sands trio.
Yeah, what is going on just slightly west there of the ruins? There's like 3 different teams and 3 different triangles all fighting over kind of the one henchman chest that's guaranteed in that area, and a couple others. So a couple scavenger routes that are directly on top of each other. We're going to hop on board here with somebody else executing on one of those scavenger routes. This was our match number 6 winner as we turn over to now the official backside. We're on the back half of the games here. Matches 7 through 12. And right now, again, we talked about it at the start of the morning. It's who can catch Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson. And despite the fact that this trio was able to take away the victory, they were able to sneak up there into a 4th place with 3 eliminations. So still a 17-point game coming out of them there. As you can see a little bit on how the scavenger execution kind of goes about. The key is maximizing your materials, getting enough distance covered to kind of scout where you're available to go to next, and see if there's anybody you can potentially ambush who's also running one of these routes. But so far, not going to happen, as we're going to swing back on board here to Clement, Nakos, and Floki.
We talked about this already, Sundown. This is one of those trios that were very deadly in heats. They kind of get up really quickly to get those elims. You mentioned 8 minutes or less and they get an elim. They average about 5 elims in their qualifiers and heats. They look really good. You picked them as well to walk away as the grand finals champion. And we had some day 1 jitters, a little bit of stumbling blocks. And now they're just seeing this new opportunity. They took a break that is so important. Now we're at that official halftime point. Just to be able to change your playbook just to change your trajectory. And like we mentioned, it's just a shift in just a little bit. You don't have to do anything too crazy. Just a simple shift could get you back up into the leaderboard standings.
And one thing to note, too, is they had just two really, really, really poor games where they weren't able to get into those placement thresholds. As you can see on the right-hand side, each elimination being a point, but the placement starting to tick in once you're in the top 17. And for a trio like this in particular, they thrive on consistently getting placement points. They're not necessarily known for those absolutely massive over-the-top victory royales. They're more than capable of winning a game, but it's not typical for them to be getting those 15, 16, 17 eliminations VRs back-to-back. They did it in heats, though. However, now we're going to swing over to a little bit of contention going on. It's the battle here at Doom's Domain, and yet again, as we saw during the qualifier 3 rounds, Benji and Co. controlling the vault and then utilizing the secret passageways back and forth to try and get positioning over here on the north side of the house. And you can see the dual media group now trying to rotate back over here. However, all of the onus here is really going to be on Benji and Co. to take this one out.
And we're seeing this engagement could be so detrimental to run. Dual Media's trio is sitting in 30th place at the moment. And day one, Benji, Mr. Savage, and Lechi I think they ran them out of Doom's Domain at the very beginning, very early on. It looks like Dual Media has stepped it up just a little bit, maybe trying to take advantage of Mr. Savage, Lechi's, and Benji's slow starts. If they could shake off that slow start, maybe Benji could kind of put a run together to contest with Mongo's trio, to contest with Andalix. But right now, so far, we're just seeing another slow start here, Sundown. Just a little bit. I mean, we maybe see the early signs of it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm tasting the air, and I could taste that slow start.
And the one thing to note is about the slow starts today, you think, yeah, well, we got 7 games today. That's one more than we normally get. Like, it's okay. There's time as Birdseye there gets picked up by Benji in a nice little 50-50, able to swap over there to the Epic AR. Lechi is also going to be able to get a pickup there on the side. Benji's going to find the other one, and Lechi doesn't get converted, so saving some key resources there as well, not having to go over and utilize the reboot. We'll have to find some additional white heals if they have the bandage cannon, so not going to lose too much, but I mean, we've talked about it. Everyone is playing catch-up to Tayson, Mitro, and Mongrel. And one slow game, they got 17 points last game. So all of a sudden, that difference at the top, specifically if you're Benji, Savage, and Lechi, you lost 12 points last game. You have to make that up some way, shape, or form. And if these guys don't go down, if we don't see kind of that classic patented Mongrel over-aggression, where he kind of overreaches a little bit in the early and the mid-game, and they keep getting their Storm Surge tags, I think, again, it's going to turn into a race for second.
I mean, the biggest fear as well is if somebody or some trio just decided to do 50-50s and try to drop into Starks. It happened before. They did lose their spot early in qualifiers when Jazzbase Trio, who is in the grand finals, mind you, kind of contested. They kind of started to lose it, but I think that woke up MMT. That woke up this trio to let them know, look, we're going to have to understand that someone will contest us at some point. And they just obliterated Jazzbase Trio in that next day in that tournament. So that is what we're kind of watching here. It's like, will it happen? Could it happen? We already seen OCE. The Lynx Trio slip from that first place, going all the way down to 7th place or so. It could happen, but so far, I don't taste it in the air. I only smell grand final champion here.
And that would be such a key kind of feather in these guys' caps. We talked about them being some of the strongest and best players in the world, and right now trying to put that on display, utilizing, again, we talked about this as well, the first shot accuracy from the Stark Industry Rifle and the high base damage of it, the fact that it still hits for 35 even at maximum range, and being able to convert on those 50 plus damage headshots make it one of the strongest weapons. And particularly, I mean, everybody has seen the clip of Mongrel on the high ground with an infantry rifle. This is about the same. And you'll also notice too, they'll generally run in terms of the rifle choice. They'll have a burst rifle on Mitro, and then Tayson and Mongrel will pick up those Stark Industry Rifles. That way, when you're spraying a wall, you have the fast first shot accuracy from the Stark rifles, and then the 2-shot burst coming through on the burst AR. It gives them a bunch of pressure to hit trios behind their builds.
We saw that stat of Indretta, Sapphic, and Mongrel having 15 plus elims, so they are slaying out. But what a metaphor. You see Mongrel's trio all decked out, swagged out in whiplashes, and then you see everybody else in the back of the pack trying to catch up in the coup. That's the kind of race that we're talking about. Can the turtle catch the hare? And this hare has an extreme crazy start. And they're not going to be lazy like that story hare. They're not going to take a break. They're not going to eat. They're going to keep running at full speed. They're going to take their whip flashes and cross the finish line. The question is, can the people in the coupes and the trucks, any kind of Fortnite vehicle, man, I'm going to take it all the way back to the board days, and maybe the shopping cart days, who's going to catch up to that Whiplash trio? I don't know who that's going to be.
Yeah, you can see those Mike 51s being so fast on rotation, but I will say the one thing that could end up potentially being a little bit of a stumbling block for the trio would be if they end up struggling with Storm Surge today. We've already seen in the first two games that first Storm Surge has been massive in a completely uncontested drop spot. If they aren't able to kind of get enough tags to get over the top, that could force them into kind of one of those classic mongrel over aggressive situations.
Right.
As long as they avoid that, I think they'll be okay. Right? I think that if they've done enough so far where they have the playmaking ability over the course of these 6 games, that they're going to have at least 1 or 2 more solid games in that instance. As long as they don't have 1 or 2 absolutely ruinous games by Storm Surge, this should be good enough for them. But right now, we're going to hop on board with the pressure coming from iDrop straight into the box. Downs gets picked up there. No problem from iDrop 7. However, Stirstix is going to eat a little bit of a problem there. He gets caught in a separate box, and all of a sudden, the 2v2 on the mark, you can see iDrop trying to push forward. They're going to try and get a little bit of a disengage, make sure they can get shields up, but a little bit of a slip up there from what is normally a very strong box-to-box trio.
That was like an extreme push. I've never seen the 1, 2, 3 go, and everybody just box dive in with the AR spray and getting right inside as a trio. And then what ended up happening is they ran into that edit with the triangle edit, and one got caught, got hit right in the shins. You mentioned this in the EU side of things. You got to wear your shin guards, man. You got to pop them, or if not, someone's going to crack you, give you that slide tackle, and there's not going to be a referee to come out of nowhere and give you a red card to kick you out. You're going to have to do this on your own.
Yeah, worst case scenario, you'll get a warning there in the form of one of your players dropping down, but the retaliation not going to result in anybody else being sent off. You can see Nems and Wave Doko rotating through the river, using that downstream current to try and get a little bit of speed, but iDrop being aware of that as well, getting good pressure onto him here, and actually looks like they're trying to kind of pick this fight 2v3. You see Storm Surge is ticking on. 20 players going to be impacted by that here in 1 minute and 45 seconds. iDrop trying to force his way into the box, but plenty of angles and pressure coming out from the other side. Super limited amount of materials here, down to only 17 builds. You can see that under his 1 elimination here. So we wait for it to catch up, and you can see good pressure coming out from Nems. He is down the shield advantage, but he has his teammate providing some rifle support on both the angles that you can see. Tuganza and Joko just laying down shots for him. A little bit of spread out, though, if they are able to force in and get Nems situated. And they're going to use the harpoon gun straight in, and Nems is going to get picked off. A huge pick up there from iDrop and Vettel, but can they get out of the water?
You're just seeing how great this trio is, but I think what's really affecting them as we're seeing them to try to capitalize and close out this trio is that essentially that change in drop spot is really hurting them. Look at their power weapons. It's not there. They're really doing this with green weapons and not having that firepower. Yes, you could be the most extreme trio that's going to fight hip to hip, but when you're not as strong as Monster was like to say, a 1.5 player that's walking around with an epic shotgun or legendary shotgun, it's just going to be so difficult for you to close out these fights. It's a matter of stamina, and you don't have the necessary stamina considering that you're basically going into these engagements in shambles, and already iDrop 7 goes down. Surfsticks is already out, and Vettel is literally on the green HP as Storm is going to overwatch them, and there it is. They get cleaned up, Sundown, and this is the same interesting that I was talking about Thomas HD, the change in drop spot. This trio of Vettel landed in Misty Meadows during their heats. Thomas HD landed in Dirty Docks. They made the switches, and they have yet to kind of find the right rotations out of those changes.
We can see all the action going down as everyone trying to get above the Storm Surge special, but most important to the leaderboard there, we saw Andalex and Co. ended up having at least 2 of their players fall, so going to be forced into a 1v3 situation unless they can stick a revive. We're going to hop on board here. Nako's Clement and Floki sitting on 1 Elam, courtesy of Nako's vertical shockwave coming out, pops him up into the air, but not going to really find anything. Going to be able to utilize his hard mats, just kind of drop back down. You can see the Elam feed lighting up, and the only thing that matters is we're not seeing Mitro, Mongrel, and Tayson on the right side of that feed. In fact, we saw them on the left side of that feed getting a knock, and right now, Vadil, Kylie, and Frostroki under pressure here from our top 4 French trio of Nakos, Floki, and Clement.
And Vidil was one of those trios that was so hot coming into the grand finals, and they just literally, just like a hot iron hitting cold water, boom, just get cooled down instantly, just like that chug splash. No doubt must be feeling right now. It's so sweaty, the competition's going to get so stiff, and you're looking at here, things are going to get ratcheted up a notch. Considering, Sundown, we have a Coral Castle finish in our midst, in the distance. But let's just focus in on this trio fight right now. Floki, Clement, Nakos, who's been heating up, had a great game previously. These are the fights that they had lose, because we saw it in day 1 where they had those bad game 2 and game 3. This cannot go, they have to go their way here. Yes, it's a nice knock on Vadil.
Yeah, Floki actually just put Vadil in a blender there for a second. Getting over to the side there, Kylie also going to end up dropping from a couple boxes away, getting a key siphon too over onto Nakos, who desperately needed the extra shield. They wanted that pickup. They know that Frostroki is still around here somewhere. They have the additional flopper, but keep an eye on the bottom right-hand corner. See all of those triangles who are already rotating the zone ahead of them, and with only one shockwave, it's going to be very dangerous for this trio to approach the outside. Still 66 players remaining, 25 trios, so continuing the trend of having a little bit of a denser lobby. However, thanks to those 3 eliminations, they're not going to have to worry about this tier 2 Storm Surge when it rears its head.
Yeah, it feels great. They got the elims, but they're not yet in the placement threshold. We are about 8 trios going down before we can start doling out those points. And this is the things they're already overcoming these engagement obstacles, but they're not out of the water yet. There's still some stormy skies ahead of them. Nakos, Floki, and Clemento are making their way up the board slowly and surely, but they're going to need Nakos, Floki, and Clemento are lobby focus, but that's what you got to do. You're going to have to shoot back and let the people know that are doing those window edits stop shooting at me.
One of the key things about this trio is their ability to get eliminations gives them the opportunity to climb up the leaderboard just a little bit more effectively. Again, we've talked about it in the games where they don't drop right away. They're one of the more aggressive trios, so their averages are brought down a little bit by those complete and utter goose egg games. When you take those out of consideration, they have a really good time. But forget what I'm saying right now, as the matter of importance is in the bottom right-hand corner. You see that white circle? That's the 4th safe zone. There's circle, that's the 4th safe zone. There's only 3 trios currently inside of it, so everyone else is going to begin a mad dash to just pack in on the southern side of that circle. The entirety of the lobby will be trying to squeeze into that area because everyone else is going to be coming from that side. Nobody wants to put themselves as the first ones out over water. It makes it so easy. You can see everyone going at once, just desperately swimming, hoping to avoid the fire at the top. And just look at the charge up the beach. Storming the beachhead comes EU.
Oh my goodness, and we're seeing trios already going for height. Mongo and Mitro at height, and just behind them, looming in a distance, as Benzi trio. And they're kind of gambling in. If the circle goes their way and half in and half out, they're going to have a strong hold here. So Mongo, Mitro, and Tayson here are just now beaming any kind of salmon trying to swim upstream. And they're going to be that bear that's going to feed on this entire rotation here. And look at the congestion that you're seeing here. Everybody, like you mentioned, Sundown, all trying to get on the beach as much as possible and hold on tight. And already there's only one trio that's kind of sitting up there, that pink one, and Floki. Oh no! Floki goes down. That engagement that took up the time is influencing them. It's hurting them on this rotation, Sundown.
And they're completely out there. Clement got picked up earlier. Nakos going down right afterward in the long rotation. The top 14, we talked about their ability to get eliminations, but at what cost? Apparently everything, as our number 1 trio sits high atop their perch, high atop the throne. They're first in the leaderboard. They're first right now in positioning here. Nakos gets a little bit of a gimme there as Dave, aka Rojo, will tick over, but one more player will drop and our Storm Surge will turn off. We have 19 trios left, so almost into the placement points, but yet again, up on the high ground, Mitro, Mongrel, and Tayson priority positioning. Our second place team still in the lobby, but they're going to have to be toppled at some point. The clock is against everyone else, as Janice and Andalex are also without squeeze. They're in a duo. However, luckily for everyone, the lobby is pulling completely away from that with the little side note that we are going all the way over the water. So expect a ton of utility to be burnt here with only 3 trios having priority.
Split Splash, we are taking a bath here in this in-game. It's all going to be aquatic. It's all going to be chaotic. It's all going to be dangerous. But at the end, there's going to be someone that's going to have a victory royale. They're going to be soaked. They're going to be tired from all the sweat and all the water. But it's going to be a big game. Somebody could easily kind of bolt their way up their leaderboard, but if Mongo, Mitro, and Tayson, yes, they didn't get the victory royale, but Shio said it best. They kind of got a mini victory just by staying up, and look at it, they're at height. This is going to be big considering everything's going to be over water. The low ground warriors are not going to have the ability to save their resources because they're going to have to build floors as well.
Yeah, and we've talked about it too. Single game, and it's going to have to be pried out of our eliminated bodies right now. As you can see, 3 eliminations, everyone still trying to pack on in, and again, placement points starting to get doled out. And as we keep an eye on the top of the leaderboard, every single placement point that Tayson, Mongrel, and Mitro get effectively nullifies the placement points everyone else is getting, because it doesn't matter if you get that point, they're getting it too. They'll continue to open up that lead, and unless somebody can knock them down off of this throne, it looks like it's going to continue to be a battle for second. As the 5th zone will close, we'll have our transition into the end game, and we're gonna head over to the Shark, baby.
Yes, and now Cammy, that was a trio that was able to knock off Mongo, Mitro, and Tayson with a shockwave play. That is the EU thing to do. No doubt, Mongo, Mitro, and Tayson know how to kind of combat that. They know the defense. And they get a good spread, and there it is. They're going to beam all these people trying to go for it. They're already going to the tip of the nose of the Shark. They're becoming the Sharks of the region. We already have a Rogue Shark, NA East, the X-Set boys, and all that. But Mongo, Mitro, and Tayson are being the alpha predators, the apex of right now in this EU region. And that is proof in the pudding, considering they're sitting on top of the leaderboard, and they're looking pretty, and they're looking swaggish, because right now Tayson picked up a knock in the feet, and we already seen this. Double E limbs comes from height. The E limb natality is strong with this trio.
And you can see, have you ever just wanted a shark with a laser beam on top of his head? Well, this is the best you'll ever get. It's Mongrel up there with a legendary Stark infantry rifle, raining shots from above. We saw Savage go down in the feed. Lechi's going to pick up another Elim. Despite the fact that 17 players have dropped, not a single trio has gone down, so only 1 placement point doled out. And as I say that, they begin to tick over. Mongrel gets another elimination. 15 trios remaining, going to be forced over to the side. He's going to build back up. He needs to get over to the high ground and connect with his team, but they are doing a great job of executing this textbook high ground control, and it's going to be their match to close out. However, low on mats is Mongo, but he says, don't matter, don't care. I got the AR I need in the Stark Industry Rifle, and he finds another elimination. We have our top 20 players, top 11 trios.
And it's going to go back over water again. And it all is up to Tayson, the in-game leader, to kind of lead Mongo and Mitro to the prime positioning with getting a knock on ZQ, getting them those angles that they need to send those beams down. We've already labeled these as one of the strongest players in the region with beams, and look at this, it's going to go off a waterfall, so the more elevation is going to go down and down. This is going to be crazy. This is intense. Coral Castle, and now we're going to take a peek just for a brief moment at what is going down in the chaos down below. We have the ultimate box fighter teams, Wolfie, CRR, and Kenzel sitting in 3rd place, trying to say, wait a minute, not so fast, Mongo. We are going to contest you, and we are going to have a chance to win, but it's going to require a huge effort to dethrone the Kings on top, Sundown.
And we still need to see them go down. However, Janice on his feet, despite Andalex being up to the 2nd place team, at least still getting up to 5th. That's what the top trios do the best in the game. They manage to find a way to eke out these placement points. We've talked about it, that Europe has kind of been the run of the Lone Ranger of the final moments. And if there isn't a trio hip to hip, then there's an opportunity for the clutches to come through. But right now, on the low ground, you have one of the most dangerous trios who is hip to hip, as Hen Tyson will go down there. Deceptos following in his feet right away will signal the end of that trio. But Wolfies is at the back of the storm. But at the end of the day, the story of EU, time and time again, E11 Tayson, the Chapter 2 Season 3 solo winner, Liquid Mitro and Mongrel on the high ground running it out. It's a 3v2. They have 11 eliminations, and at this point, it is a battle for second. There is no way, unless there is a monumental ruin, that with the way this trio is playing so far, anybody will be able to catch them or repeat this performance. And this is why Mitro drops down. Tayson and Mongrel shooting fish in a literal barrel of the zone. 13 eliminations, 38 points.
You know they're feeling it when Tayson edit downs Mitro to be the ultimate swanton bomb off the top rope, getting the big-time elims and the victory royale. Sundown. Wow, man. We all question, will Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson have a successful hot start in day 2? And that right there, with the great consistency in that opening games, proves that they have a great chance of walking away to being that FNCS Trios champion.
55 points through the first 2 games. This trio is averaging now just over 25 points a game. That's a victory royale with nothing else. This run is nuts, but we're going to send it on over to Zeke, Shio, and Reese to show us how good it really is.
First game jitters, no. Thank you,
Number
Reese.
one.
Thank you. Number 1. Listen, first game jitters are gone. The trio cracks back. I can't believe it. And these guys did a perfect job of calling this out for us, right? Tayson being your solos invitational FNCS champion from Chapter 2 Season 3. Coming in, you've got the veterans, the pioneers, Mongrel and Mitro. You slam them all together, and we may very well be looking at the next FNCS Trios champions. Let's take a look at these leaderboards. Look at this lead, gentlemen.
It is monstrous. 186 points to 122, and these guys have 3 victory royales.
That's incredible, actually. 64 points in the lead. And you know, Mongrel and Mitro have been known as this really aggressive 2 players. Solo, duo, trio, squads, it doesn't matter. These guys are very, very aggressive. And, you know, when they started teaming up with Tayson, I felt like it was a personal, fantastic choice because Tayson is very calm, collected, very keeps his own head, and he can IGL these guys into victory. And throughout the start of the FNCS, there was a lot of memes on social media about Tayson, you know, struggling to keep these 2 on their leash. But it seems like at this point, he's wrapped it all up, and these guys are just playing incredibly consistently.
And we'll have much more to break down as to what they did in that last game. Pay attention to the 2nd and 3rd place, Kinzel and Exqueezes trio. These guys are now just 1 point beside each other. We'll see how their story kind of unfolds in these next few games and who gets to have that 2nd place slot. Over here from Styx all the way to 10th place, Benji, Savage, and Letchi finding some success with Elims in a few games, not making those end games completely. 85 points right now. Past that from 7th to 10th, it is just a 4-point game from Flores' trio all the way down to Teeks.
Yeah, very, very close between the 6th and 10th. And, you know, we just talked about Benji's team there. They kind of have been struggling being contested off spawn, kind of similar to what we've seen during the qualifiers. You know, they'll win that fight, but it'll drag out way too long, and the rotations just aren't good because of that. So I don't know what the next plan is for the next few games today, but hopefully they can kind of figure that out. But moving on to our next page, 11th down to 15th. Kind of the similar names that we've seen over the last 2 days on this page.
Yeah, I was going to say that the top 15 is really kind of looking standard now. These guys have found their pacing. It's about improving even more now, taking every game as an individual moment, analyzing it, making the best decisions, and winning, just like we saw Mitro, Mongrel, and Tayson do in that last game. From 16th to 20th overall, we also have a few new names coming in and out, but at the same time, the same teams still on the page. We see Lanuf, Marine, and Jaspe on this page right now, 47 points, contesting that top team in first place. 10 Deceptos and Putrick finding some success here on day 2, but these guys will have to have great games to catch up to that top 5.
Guys, this last game felt like a superhero movie, right? We had the shot of the waterfall. We had players trying to go up and down, and then finally the heroes find themselves basking in the sun at the end, being victorious. I mean, we very well could be looking at our next FNCS champions, but there's more that kind of happened here in the game. So I'm going to kick it over to you guys. Walk us through what you guys are seeing.
Yeah, we'll have some big perspectives here earlier on in that end game from Mongrel and how these guys kind of learned from their last game, game number 1 of today, fixed their mistakes, and in game number 2, really played the zone very well to get that victory royale.
You can see they're already on height at this point, but they claimed that during the 50-50 zone because they got the zone right on them from 4th. But these guys are good. They'd already claimed a high ground position earlier on, so when they got that 5th zone, they could completely utilize that and keep height from there on out.
Yeah, in game 1, the mistake was kind of putting all the eggs in one basket, but not really knowing exactly where that basket stood. In this zone, there was water completely in the low ground. They were very comfortable on staying on height the whole time. Tayson here as well staying at the front. Mongrel staying in the back so he could keep tabs on any trios trying to shockwave up like we saw Artours do before. There's that water dive bomb play as Sancho called out. CRR, Kinzel, and Wolfies tried their best to play this water zone, but being on height is the best choice when you're in this type of zone, this aquatic kind of formation of what ends up happening for everyone on low. It's so hard to find your footing, and because of that, Mitro, Mongrel, and Tayson stayed high, stayed dry, and ended up winning that game with beautiful decision making.
And Mitro actually, if you saw there, edited down by Tayson, which didn't seem like an accident. You know, initially when you watched that back, it seemed like Mitro was going to make the aggressive play to go pick up those eliminations, but you know, even the top teams make a mistake at the end, accidentally editing Mitro down into the water, but because they were over that water, he was safe from fall damage, and they all managed to frag out and pick up that big victory royale.
Hey, look, you just got to fake it till you make it, right? It's not a mistake if you don't call it out. It's a calculated risk, a calculated plan of attack. And when you're as far ahead as these guys, when you're as skilled as these guys, when you've been on the scene as long as these guys, they turn these L's into W's. That's just what they do. I want to see them continue with this momentum. Remember, we've got another 5 games on the day. Anything can happen, but will it? We have to kick it back over to our casters to continue the storylines, and we'll be back after this with more breakdowns. Take it away, boys.
Thank you so much, Zeke, Shio, and Reese. And here we are into the match number 8. And so far, it's been all Tayson, Mongrel, and Mitro with nothing less than a 7th place finish over their first 7 matches. So incredibly well done. But already looking at the mini-map, for the first time in what feels like a long time, there's some other triangles at Stark Industries. So somebody has decided to pony up. Somebody has decided to rise to the challenge and be the David to their Goliath over at Stark Industries. We'll be keeping an eye on that elimination feed, but with the Southern Zone 2 right on the edge of that, it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Hey, I don't know, man. I've been watching Ghostbusters getting me in the Halloween spirit. You guys released some awesome outfits. And that is a biblical proportion type feat. That is one giant marshmallow man to overcome there. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to bust the bubble of Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson. They are on an unbelievable ride. But one hero that may stand tall, one trio that can get that job done is Kinzel, Wolfies, and CRR. They can make things interesting. And the reason why I say that is because they can pop off with elims as well. And they've been putting it all together. We're getting some placement points, Sundown.
And one thing to note in particular about the last game, you saw how he had the bandage cannon on the low ground, but being out of mats, and when you're in the water, you can't actually fire the bandage against anything. It will go all the way down to the bottom of the water. So despite being on 20 HP, he didn't have anything to kind of mark himself against, as we actually see up in the elimination feed, and Dretta picking up another early elimination there. But also, we saw Lecce end up going down as well. So another one of our power trios over at Doom's Domain struggling a little bit here off of the start. The Dual Media boys giving them everything they can handle so far here on day 2.
And I gotta know, as we seen that Snipe does pick up an elim on Benji, what happened? What went down there in Stark Industry? We gotta see in a moment notice. We'll get that replay up going.
Yeah, and that was Benji's full elim as well. Their trio is down. You keep an eye on that top left corner now, as we're going to see. It's an Thomas HD and Flick. If there's anybody to rise to the challenge and go after these guys, it will be them. You can see Anas already holding on to the elimination. Flick finds Mitro off of the start, and not only that, but the power weapons in their hands. You can see Tayson tries to make a little bit of an escape here, but you know they're going to ride that one down right away. Big white tags coming out there, and Flick, who accounts for 75% of this trio's eliminations pre-round or pre-zone 5, is going to find his second one here, and they're going to wrap up for the first time in this tournament. Tayson, Mitro, and Mongrel go down with 0 points. They had never finished lower than 7th place before this, and that was all the way back in the first game. So now, all of a sudden, that battle for second place, everyone else gets that one opportunity to kind of, I believe the technical term is, whoop, shrink that leaderboard gap just a little bit.
Oh, man. And that is the story that we have now developing. I took a look at Twitter, okay? I took a look, and Flick, all he tweeted out was a demon emote. That's all, emoji. That's all he tweeted out. Anas, he said, we should have never left. I'm telling you, the problems of switching from their drop spot. They switched from that dirty docks where they were being so strong and so prominent, and they had strong finishes. When they switched to retail row, I just think they noticed that it wasn't enough. They weren't getting their power weapons. They weren't getting all the resources that they need for their play style. And now they realize that, hey, man, you know, yeah, you never know. They could pop off. You never know, Sundown.
And we've talked about it before as well with this trio coming through. One, they're incredible in terms of their playmaking ability. Whether it's early or late game, we've seen Flick just kind of let running. They also get a nice little Llama 210 pick up there, some extra mats, extra utility. Not that the Stark Industries team will need it after that fact, but I mean, the playmaking capability. But on the flip side of that, let's talk about kind of the mental check that's now going to put on Mitro, Mongo, and Tayson.
Huge.
Because for this entire competition, they haven't had to worry about sitting there in queues. They haven't had to worry about thinking who's going to come there. They haven't had to game plan something else. They haven't had to prep for somebody to come challenge them. Now, all of a sudden, not only are you eliminated in 30 seconds with 0 points, you have to sit there for half an hour, watch everyone else play outside while you're stuck there in jail. No more games for you back in the lobby. And they're out of that rhythm a little bit. They're a trio who very much kind of rides on that momentum. They're very, very emotional players. When they made the World Cup announcement back in the day, people joked about Mitro and Mongrel being the loudest duo, both for the keyboard clacks and just the way they celebrate when they make their plays. But now that they've been silenced for a second, how do they react?
Tayson will have the biggest challenge of them all. Will Mongrel and Mitro put up that brick wall and not listen to his calls? Yeah, it's going to be up to Tayson to kind of hold that ship from going capsizing completely. Giannis, Alex, and Xweez, they have an opportunity now to gain some grounds here. They are about 60-plus points away. They're certainly sitting in second place. Another trio that we took a peek in down in Slurpy Swamps was Kinzel, Wolfie, and CR. That opens up the door to gain some ground, but we're talking about a difference of about 2 victory royales and some, like, close to double-digit elims. That's what's going to be required, and the difference is, as well, is we still have plenty of games to go, Sundown. We're just barely into the second half here of the grand finals here of the FNCS trios.
And it was starting to feel like it couldn't be overcome because of how consistent they were. There was no hope. There was nobody who wanted to rise up and be the ones to challenge them. However, we've kind of talked about it before. Like, Jaspe and Co., yes, they 50-50 the chess, but they were relatively successful, and they turned a couple of those late games around. So especially if a top trio comes in with a game plan on how to take those fights, and they come in not necessarily fearing those 3 off of the bat, which they're one of the 3 players who can really genuinely say, like, yeah, let's go fight these guys and maybe come out better than 50-50. Now all of a sudden you're gonna think, okay, Mongo really wants to get revenge there, but if they're not, they haven't had to practice this drop being contested through the first 6 or 7 games. Now all of a sudden, 8th game they lose it. 9th game, if they lose it again, there's gonna be that seed of doubt in there. But right now, Razumi trying to get a little bit of doubt on this team, rotating away here, and a little bit of storm tags as they just remain utilizing their soft mats to get some position.
And Safik's trio here is looking for a good start here in day 2. Haven't gotten any points at the moment, in 11th place. Safik has been one of our slayers here in the region, picking up 15-plus elims by himself. But speaking of opportunities, opening the door here, it feels like, you know, At Anas, Thomas, Stacey, and Flick have slayed the beast, right? Now all the villagers are going to have a good time to try to claim that castle up there. And Nakos, Clement, and Flokis have an opportunity to storm that castle. They're sitting in 4th place at the moment. They're still about 30 points away, so that is a victory royale. They could definitely do it in one punch, but they could slowly jab their way up their leaderboard, Sundown.
I would say it's probably more equivalent to either scratching the dragon's nose and making him think for a second.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's where he breathes the fire at him, so he's got like a little. It's like,
Yeah,
hey, that's some minor discomfort.
yeah.
I wasn't ready for that. I'm gonna come back in a moment, but like,
Yeah.
the villagers are celebrating. They're like, yay, we drove off the beast. Or it's like punching a
did.
great white shark in the face. It's like, yeah, you know what? You punched the great white shark in the face. But that shark is still in the water with you.
Yeah.
You showed that maybe you might be a bit of a threat. Maybe you can punch back, but he's still there. They still exist, and while they're going to be forced out for just a little second, one, who takes advantage of that opportunity? And two, what happens when that angry shark, that angry dragon, the poked bear decides to come back in the next match? But right now, we're going to keep on board here with the teams who will have an opportunity to close the gap, because realistically, going into the back 5 of these games, only really the teams in the top 4 or maybe the top 5 can statistically still kind of overtake this route, and it's going to take a large effort. As you see Clement going and doing every little thing right, making sure they maximize on the utility here, going all the way out and picking up that second big pot, and then going to rotate back up the zone.
I know the Halloween party is over and all that spooky scariness, but I've always learned to double tap. You always got to double tap and make sure that monster is down. And that's what Flick, Thomas, and Nos, they're going to have to double tap that down if they're going to keep Mongrel's trio at bay. So, Mongrel trio is out. Now let's just focus in on who is in and who has the opportunity to go up the leaderboard. And if you're questioning anybody out there, like, why would Thomas and Nos and Flick do that? Because they're slipping down the leaderboard. They start off the day with 15. They're going down to 17. Having Stark, that strong POI in their back pocket now, could enable them to get up their leaderboard and secure themselves thousands of dollars. All of it is on the line.
And people are going to say, oh, why would they go and grief the top trio like that? And to my response to that, are you crazy? Are you crazy? They're competing to try and be the absolute top mark.
Yes.
And if this is a trio who is more than capable of winning games, especially when you see Thomas and Anas enabled with shockwaves. That's kind of what you really need to take away. They have to have a reliable way of getting the late game utility. That's how they've won their games. And if you can go Stark and guarantee that, yes, you have to fight one of the best teams in the entire game to get them. But if you want to win, you have to beat those guys anyway. And they finally said enough is enough. And if you're going to post your spot on Twitter, if you're going to talk about how you're so good at defending this spot, you better have a game plan and you better back it up. Because anybody has the opportunity to land anywhere. This is Fortnite Battle Royale. And if a team gives you a hard enough time, you need to game plan better and find a way to deal with it.
And that is what we call preach right then and there, Sundown. Now we're on board here with BDS, Robots. They got a victory royale here. They were able to have a very nice aggressive play. They kind of took the textbook of fighting on the low ground, doing really well. They got a victory royale. So one of the few teams that have a victory royale, because Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson have 3 victory royales. Yanis trio has 1 victory royale. Kenzel's trio has 1. And as well, Gamma's Cammy's trio has 1 as well. Cammy and Co. So those are the stories that are unfolding here. And the great thing is, you know, we can speculate all you want, but it is the competitors themselves that answers the questions. And that is what we're watching here as the drama unfolds. And the drama will pick up for Wolfies and CRR, considering Kenzel, the back-to-back DreamHack champion, goes down. And Kenzel is just like just like Tayson for this trio. He kind of holds it all together, considering that in DreamHack it's a very placement-heavy format, and having that ability to kind of slow pace, passively, aggressively at times whenever you needed to get your way further into in-game, that's going to help out people like CRR Wolfies, who are known to be great opens box fighter players.
But right now, we're keeping on that Storm Surge special on the right-hand side, just above the map. We talked about them being below it. Well, the key snipe there coming from that World Cup runner-up there, the young controller player from England. Wolfie's finding a great tag and a sneaky little bullet in there on Sakura through the window, just like a true sniper would. well done to put himself above. And we talk about the little moments. That moment is so much bigger than just the 1 point on the elimination. Shedding themselves of that Storm Surge threat is going to be massive in terms of just getting positioning, as we've seen atypical compared to what we've seen in Europe so far. There's been more and more Storm Surge pressure coming into grand finals. No team had more Elans versus Mongrels trio than Flicks, and a part of that has to do with the rotation path. They're always coming out of the east and passing that Stark Industries, and also, man, just pound for pound, they're one of the few trios who actual wall-to-wall matches up with those guys. And when we talk about kind of wall-to-wall, that's when you're in a box against somebody and not necessarily in the same space, but owning one or two walls in between you guys. These guys execute on those fights almost better than anyone in Europe.
And Thomas is a superstar, had a great run in heats. Anas and Flick are right behind him as well. They're forming a very strong trio. Thomas HG had some Twitter barbs with Zexero from NA East. Thomas HG was talking about, hey, who could come over here from NA East and compete? Should I go over there? It's so interesting. We all wish we had a World Cup Part 2. Like I said, sometimes the sequels are better than the originals. We all wish that. We all wish we'd be able to settle the great debate of EU versus NA. And don't forget about the Latin American. Don't forget about the Asia. Don't forget about OCE. We're talking about Fortnite, baby, worldwide. Some of the best competitors all throwing down, and it's all happening here in this amazing month here. I cannot wait to see who's going to walk away champion here for EU, and I cannot wait to see who's going to walk away for champion in NA East, so the debate's going to kick back up again.
You can see right now we're hopping on board here with that second place team on the leaderboard, who's going to try and take advantage of that opportunity to shrink that leaderboard and shrink the lead of that top trio. But I'm glad you mentioned something about Latin America, because there's an international land. We've seen just how good King can be in those circumstances, but right now all the focus is on Europe, as Squeeze, aka MCES, duck on top there, finds a nice little knock and some key shots on players trying to rotate in. Now this positioning, we've talked about it time and time before, it's called the gatekeeping position. When you're in the safe zone and pressuring players who have the zone at their back, or either already into it and need to make it into the new safe zone. It's where a lot of teams who had the foresight to rotate earlier are able to get key opportunities to pick up eliminations. And you can see right now, Duck on top doing a great job spraying down shots there, having control of the pieces in the area, and now trying to locate where that weak member is.
And we're seeing already the rest of the lobby, seems to heating up at the right moment. Hen picks up a knock right there in the Elam feed, so that's going to be huge for them. Now that we know that the big monsters are out of the game, that's just going to make everyone play a little bit more loose. It's like all of a sudden the parents are not watching it anymore. The kids are going to run bunctious. The Rugrats are going to do what they do best. And that's going to be an opportunity that they have to capitalize. You're going to have a big pop-up game here if you're Analyx, Xweez, and Giannis, if you want an opportunity to get that first place. And I mean, we're all going to have to keep an eye on. We talked about moments leading to bigger moments, and that moment of the opening engagement from Thomas, Flick, and Anas getting out Mongrel is causing so much waves throughout the entire time. And look at that. Analyx, Giannis have someone on the ropes in that back half. Let's take a look at the overall picture here and see who's going to have a strong position going forward. This is going to be a very interesting in-game, considering we have a lot of water and Lazy Lake POI in the distance.
Right now, you can see Wolfie's CRR not having to move, just still perched up on top of the building. Nuf, Moraine, Jaspe, the other team who had originally contested over at Stark Industries, but not brave enough to go over there in the grand finals, posted up. Getting a nice 360 view here. Shout out to the observers, by the way. They've done a great job catching all of the action and giving us some of these beautiful shots. So you see a nice little double ramp rush coming out from our second place team. That to me indicates that that fourth zone was revealed, and they're going to try and get priority over that entire western side, and a good push from them there. As you see Floki also pick up an elimination onto Swag. So the French trio continuing their tradition of picking up more elims than normal in the mid game, as Andalex in another one of those gatekeeping positions here, priority high zone. And I mean, the reason they're packed around the outside is that fourth circle. So we have half in, half out right after this.
This is a strong gatekeeping opportunity. The only danger they risk is getting sniped, returned, and that kind of return to sender type lethality is going to be so dangerous to deal with. But they're sitting good. They're covering angles, and almost someone kind of almost out of nowhere, kind of peekaboo, Jack in the Box, took a shotgun blast for Analyx and kind of woke him up for a brief moment. You got to be careful here. You have those edits open, the greed sets in, and we've been seeing time again, Benji gets sniped in the back various times. We saw a highlight where Thomas HD was able to sneak up on him, and they had a harpoon snipe play. Hey, that greed could catch up to you. You have to be sure that you have all your angles covered before you move on. But look at this, Sundown, a max rotation pull, and this is going to be tough for Analyx, Giannis, and Squeeze, considering that there's a lot of people in their way for making this rotation.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Okay, I was just about to say, trying to see who has shockwaves on that side, because they're going to be using it right away. Because if you go too late, everyone else on that side will have already built up on the high ground and be turning around. So you need to kind of time it with other teams, so there's a plethora of targets going through the air, and you don't end up just getting swatted down like a clay pigeon. But right now, Squeeze and Analyx instead opting to stay up on their high ground, and they're going to pick up Patrick and Deceptos, leaving Hen all by himself there. We're also now rotating into the first round of placement points. 18 trios remaining, so one more will need to fall. Then every single trio that drops will be a singular point. Wolfies picks up a huge knock there onto Clement, indicating they're also making a rotation towards kind of that central zone. Everybody already posted up in Lazy Lake is more than happy and keeping an eye on the Elam feed. Janice gets knocked there as well. So our top four trios facing a little bit of adversity, but who's capitalizing on the opportunity right now? It's the team who took the situations by the horns. Thomas HD and Co. grabbing some Elams, but we're going to hop back on board here with Nate, Smash Dave, and Bobo, Exalti, our wild card team, trying to find some more rifle Elams on the side.
Rojo's team going into the day or top 10. They kind of slipped a little bit there, and they're trying to find their footing in 12th place. This is a strong opportunity. You had basically the lowest of chances to get into the grand finals, and you were one of the ones that came out on top in a wild card finish. And they're just proving the point how strong the EU region is. The 33rd team is now sitting in a top 15 situation. Now we're going to kind of pull back. Let's take a look. We already know that actually Wolfie's spot get taken out by Flix Trio. So now we're going to take a look here as now the first 6 full rotating circle is revealed, and Exalti, Nate, and Rojo get that prime priority position.
And that's the benefit of going early with the utility. They're going to be able to go before anybody else identifies the opportunity.